I don't think I've laughed as much as I just did with this week's episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure across all of the parts. This part was hilarious, and I don't think I would have said that it could be possible to be so funny in a brutal endgame until this week's episode, but seeing the characters literally swap bodies, seeing Trish in Mista's body being so disgusted by the smell, the look, the hair on the knuckles, that shit was so hilarious. It's very simple humor, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say it's some brilliantly written scene, but because we've known these characters, we know how Trish is and how she cares for her looks and just her hygiene. Seeing that scene play out was 1,000 times better than it easily could have been if it was just a random character and we were witnessing that. But seeing Trish, seeing Mista, holy shit, the confusion of what genitalia do they have, why do they smell this way, why do they look this way, just seeing the embarrassment on characters you would never expect to see embarrassed, seeing the frustration and pain and confusion, that shit was absolutely hilarious. And I didn't know I wanted something like this until this week's episode, but I'm so thankful we just witnessed what we just seen, because that shit was absolutely hilarious and I love the confusion. The amount of shenanigans in this week's episode in the middle of a life or death battle I didn't think could work, but I'm really happy they went this direction. I just love seeing just how it was so confusing for the first 5 minutes there of like, what's going on? Like, clearly I knew they swapped bodies, but it was like, how could they swap bodies when we know the stands? We knew Silver Chariot, we knew what the boss's stand was, and we knew everyone in this area. Unless they introduced a new character, how could something like this happen? And actually seeing what they did with Silver Chariot as well as Polnareff and just where this arrow is going, because this arrow is different from all the others, as seen by the design on it. And the fact that this arrow can bring out even more power in a stand if a stand did touch it, and not only could you swap the minds, you could pretty much control the world itself given the right person, which is why you could understand why not everyone knew about this knowledge and why Polnareff was only going to trust one person, that person originally being Bruno. And I thought that was really interesting because not only does it change the appearance into something that's completely badass, I love how they filtered and just kind of stylized Silver Chariot into something that almost, it didn't feel 2D, it didn't feel 3D, it felt so unnatural, and I loved that. It was all hand-drawn, but I love how they were able to stylize it in such a just confusing aura. It didn't look normal. It didn't look like a stand. It didn't look like a human. It looked like it didn't belong in the world of JoJo. And for a stand that's supposed to be ridiculously overpowered and just insane, I think they stylized it in a very interesting way that really sold. Like, even before you knew what was happening, you knew this thing meant business and you didn't want to stand in its way of its objective, which seemingly the objective is have the arrow, and that's all it knows to do right now. And the fact that it's independent from Polnareff because, well, he is dead, granted his soul and mind is trapped in a turtle at the moment, still, like, this stand is one of the few independent stands and is just protecting an arrow, and that's pretty interesting. Seeing where everything was going over this episode, even though it was so humorous, it was pretty tense seeing what was going on. Not only did their minds and kind of souls kind of swap into different bodies, the stands followed with it. Like, I was actually expecting that their stands would remain based on the body themselves, but because JoJo does have stands, it seems like it's linked to the souls themselves. And to just see the speed, the power, and the momentum behind all of their abilities, you didn't know what the hell was going on. Why were the bullets so fast? Why was Aerosmith so fast? Everything just really didn't make sense, and to see the revelation of what actually was happening, it actually feels like there was a logical reason for all of this occurring. It felt as if, like, JoJo, especially with this part, has all been about fate and how things are supposed to happen for a reason. And the fact that this arrow just so happened to fall behind a dresser, just so happens that Polnareff, because he was injured, couldn't reach it as a normal person could, so he used his stand to grab the arrow, even though he could have just left it there. I mean, he wasn't going anywhere for the time being, but because fate is woven in JoJo to a certain way, his stand had to touch it so the revelation would come that stands have more power than just what we see with each stand user up to this point. And the fact that fate was woven in that way, it really goes against what the boss has been kind of fighting against. And to see where everything led, seeing the boss come running in, but then the realization that it's our man Bruno going up against Silver Chariot, that shit was badass. Like, you knew it wasn't actually the boss, but I wasn't sure if they were going to go the route of it was Bruno or it could have been someone else. I just love how you didn't know who was who at every moment, and that's pretty intense. I mean, you got a body here, you got a dead body up there, who swapped with what? We're seeing that people can swap with animals, we're seeing that criminals can swap with police officers. Like, anyone could have been that boss running in, and to see Sticky Fingers, holy shit, that was just a blessing in disguise, I have to say. This episode was so fun. I can't believe that I can come out of an endgame episode where people can easily die, Last week, we just saw an OG go out, and I can walk out saying that shit was fun, and I had a smile on my face, at least for one more week. Because not only did they blend comedy with absolute absurdity, they also managed to make it feel serious all at the same time. Because you knew this was happening for a reason, you knew all this absurdity would lead to somewhere, and to see that all these characters had to swap bodies so Polnareff could stick around for the time being, explain what the purpose of this arrow was, go against fate itself so he could stick by and say, hey, I kind of gave you a ticking time bomb, but this was the only way for me to pass this information along. Good luck destroying my stand because this bitch is an absolute monster at this moment. But granted, it looks like they did get the jump on him, but it's not going to be that easy, I know. So it's pretty interesting to see where they're going. And I still think it is going to be Giorno who's going to unleash this power. I just feel like because Bruno is dead, he really is hanging on to life, kind of similar to Polnareff in this episode, that the only one you would really want to trust in this situation would probably be Giorno, in my honest opinion, based on the fact that he is the unofficial boss, based on his stance is already pretty ridiculous, and the fact that it can kind of give life. It just feels like that stand would be the perfect stand to invoke the power that could kind of change the world in itself. So it'll be interesting to see where they want to go. But I definitely enjoyed the voice acting in this episode. I just love how you could immediately tell they swapped bodies based on how they just didn't fit their character anymore. It felt as if things just weren't matching. You're like, oh shit, they swapped bodies. Where's Trish? Where's Giorno? Where's Mista? And how are they going to deal with it? And you could tell the performance just matched the fact that they were supposed to be the other character, but still sounding like the body they are inhabiting. And that shit was just funny. It was cracking me up, and I absolutely adored it. I've never laughed as much as I did with this week's episode of JoJo. The cherry sequence in part 3, there's so many hilarious moments, don't get me wrong. But just seeing this cast, who have just felt like the perfect ensemble cast throughout this entire part, seeing where this was, and I'm like, this is the end game, and we can have a situation like this, I'm all for it, because I was not expecting it. A complete curveball after what happened last week. We're like, oh shit, we just lost a character, the stand's looking different. Is that the same stand? Is that a different stand? Like, what's going on? To then, holy shit, I'm laughing and having fun, not fearing for characters' lives, even though in the back of my mind, I know this shit's intense and the boss could pop out at any moment and kill them, especially because the boss's stand does travel with his soul. So even if he's inhabiting someone like, Bruno's body, he could still use the stand if they get close enough. So this was tense while still remaining to be so goddamn comfy and fun, and I just don't understand how they were able to blend this so perfectly, but they found a way. This series is just so intelligent while being so ridiculous all at the same time, and I don't know many authors who would be able to write something so absurd while also feeling like, holy shit, this is tense, and you really feel like there's planning and structuring to what we're witnessing, but at the same time, I'm giggling like a schoolboy on the playground, being like, holy shit, they swap bodies and they're confused about their genitalia. I just don't understand how they brought this to life, but they absolutely did, and this was one of the stronger episodes of this season. I absolutely adored this week's episode. This was just like, holy hell, not only did they just change what we knew about stands, not only did they just kind of shake up a death and kind of give them a way to hang on to life similar to our boss in this gang, we just witnessed some of the funniest shenanigans JoJo has ever seen, and that's how you know this part knows what it's doing, where it can blend so many themes and ideas in just ridiculous situations that you walk out saying only in JoJo, but it feels like it knew what it was doing all along, and you can tell this team were having an absolute blast. From the torture dance to this, the team definitely enjoys this part of JoJo, and in the quality it absolutely shows. I think one of my big reasons I love just the ridiculous comedy in this episode is because this is a gang. This is a gang of just criminals, gangsters, and a girl who doesn't belong. And to see this situation play out in the middle of the fate of the world, essentially, because this man will become more and more powerful. The world will not do well with the boss continuing to lead his organization, and we can have a situation like this occur. That's why it's so great. Not only is it just so hilarious on a basic level, seeing what characters this is actually happening to, including the boss, that is ridiculous and absolutely absurd, and that's the brilliance of JoJo. It really, really is. I am just stunned by Golden Wind and what we've seen from the serious to just the absolute ridiculous absurdity. This part really does have it all. It's the most balanced, it has the most range, it has the most creativity both within the ridiculous situations to also the stands themselves. I loved this episode. Holy shit, it was fun. Definitely the standards have to be the voice actors just matching their swapped bodies, have to love the idea of how they detailed Silver Chariot in just such a weird way that doesn't feel like a stand but does feel like a stand all at the same time. There was a lot to love with this episode, but the twist that Polnareff was able to stick around in that turtle. This turtle has seen it all. I was wondering, like, what is this turtle gonna say when he goes back home after all the ridiculous shit that he's seen over the past few days, and then you throw one of our OGs in his body. Holy shit. Not only did he kill the poor turtle, if they do stick like that, he also threw our best boy back into an animal's body, and turtles are ancient, so the bones are probably cracking in this turtle's body. Like, he's probably a sore bastard hanging on to life. Oh, I love JoJo. Let me know what everyone thought of this week's episode down in the comment section below. Manga readers, anime rituals like myself, what did you think of the ridiculous absurdity and the twist that came along with it? Let me know down in that comment section below. If you did enjoy this video, though, be sure to drop a like and also hit that subscribe button if you haven't been new. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.